Well, hello there, You-est You community and amazing listeners. I'm here with you as your host. It's Julie, and I'm so honored and excited for this amazing guest with an incredibly beautiful accent. So all the way from the gorgeous UK, we have Gina Gardiner today. Gina is a #1 international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and relationship coach, and transformational leadership trainer with well over 30 years of experience helping people experience happiness, success, and fulfillment. She's the founder of the Thrive Together Tribe membership and personal and spiritual development program and the Enlightened Leadership program. Gina has learned to walk twice as an adult. Get a load of this. For over 20 years, she ran her award-winning school for the most part from a wheelchair. The gift of this experience was the development of a unique approach to life and the development of transformational leadership. In 2004, Gina left the school and has since worked with countless individuals, couples, teams, and organizations, helping them to step into their potential, to learn the lessons from the past, and to recognize that it is their choice to step into their power and live a fearless life. Gina is passionate about supporting people to live a truly happy, successful, and fulfilling life. Gina, it is such a pleasure to have you today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. And I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
So, I'd like to hear, my gosh, there's a lot to talk about and get to know you better. Tell us, I guess, this idea of being your You-est You, I think there's a lot of synergy with that concept and then what you're teaching people to do. What does that look like today to be your You-est You, your most authentic self?
Every one of us is a unique human being. And I know from your podcast and your website, that's something that you talk about a lot. There is only one of each of us. We're not broken. We don't need fixing.
Yeah.
We are enough as we are. That doesn't mean being complacent and that there's not the opportunity to develop and be better. But each of us comes with our own unique skills, experience, expertise, enthusiasms. And for me, when you're being genuinely, authentically stepping into your power, then you really own who you are. And being powerful is not about making the person next to you less powerful. By being in your power, you actually give other people permission to stand in their power too.
I love what you just said, kind of reflecting back. I love that. I think this is the goodness, God help us, the wave of the future, the thriving of the future is it's not about competing or because I'm powerful, you're not. What I heard you say is by being powerful, we give others that modeling, that space to also be powerful. So it's a win-win, it's cooperative.
Absolutely. And, if you look at what's going on around the world at the moment, then there needs to be a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Going from looking at our differences, looking at the things that we are fearful of in others. I mean, that's deep rooted. It's hot wired into us. We like to think that we are so evolved from cavemen and women, but actually we're not. And some are less evolved than others.
Yeah.
Because in those days, somebody who was different to you was a threat.
Yeah.
The clan that was coming from a different part of the countryside would come and be a threat to taking your land, in interfering. But I'd like to think in the 21st century, we have moved on from cavemen and women. Yeah. And actually, when we look at the things that hold us together, the things that are similar,
yeah,
even though they're unique, are the things that we can do together are far more than the things that make us different.
So true. My gosh, we could just focus the world on that, the things that are more similar. Tell us a little bit about your experience. I know, so you taught yourself to walk twice. I'd love to hear your story about being in a wheelchair, teaching yourself to walk. Like, what happened? How did you do that? Love to hear more.
I was a teacher. I became a teacher when I was 21, and I got promotion very quickly. And I became the deputy principal of a large school by the age of 28. And I was appointed to be the catalyst for change. I was the youngest bar 2 on the staff, and it was a big staff. And so for the first 6 months, I and the principal were strategically planning how we would bring the school into modern day. And I was very pleased to go skiing in the half-term holiday. We traditionally have a holiday in February a week. Now, I was a competent skier, but I had a new pair of skis for Christmas. And in those days, the fashion was to have your skis as long as possible. Yeah. And I was convinced by the salesman to buy a pair of skis which was significantly longer than I was used to. And I spent a week wrapping that extra 10 centimetres around the neck. And on the Thursday, I had a bad fall. Okay. So on the last day of the holiday, which is the Friday, I said to my friends, look, I'm just going to do my own thing. I'll meet you for lunch, but I need to get my confidence back. So I met them for lunch and they said, we found this fabulous run, come and join us. So off we went. It was a beautiful day. Those who are listening who go skiing will know what I mean. When it was bright, bright sunshine, everything looked shiny, I mean, just magnificent. And we got up onto the chairlift. And as we got to the top and they skied off, went round a corner and it became very evident that something was very wrong. Oh. And instead of it being the gentle run that they had anticipated, we were on the Schindlergratz, which is the most difficult black run in St. Anton. Oh. And this was a run that was full of moguls. Now, those who don't know what a mogul is, it's where the snow is being carved out by the weather. And you can get moguls that are the size of cobblestones, you know, an inch or two. But these were 6-foot monsters. Oh my gosh. The only way to get down was to ski. And I'd skied black runs before, but nothing quite like this. Mm. So you'd have to ski around the mogul and slip down it and go across and then find a mogul and do the same coming back. And I managed the first third of the slope pretty well. And then I had quite a bad fall. And it took me about 20 minutes to ski to the rest of my party. We're all sitting on a mogul, rather like an elf sitting on a mushroom. Mm. Took my skis off, was talking to them. It was a bright sunny day, and suddenly the snow gave way. And I rotated out, fortunately knocked myself out, because I think if I hadn't, I probably would have done a lot more damage. Came to, I have no idea how long later. And when they finally skied to me, I didn't want the blood wagon. I didn't quite know what I was doing, I don't think. And they helped me down the rest of the slope. The one good thing was that with the 2 falls, I'd actually managed most of the slope. There wasn't a lot left to do. The next day, travelled home. It was a difficult journey. And I went straight to accident and emergency and was told I'd got a bad concussion and I'd trapped a nerve in my neck. Okay. And it's very bruised. So within 2 or 3 weeks, I was back at school, and 4 weeks later, I was the deputy leader on the borough party, the area party. We took 150 odd children to Switzerland. I was told I could go because we had a medic with us. But as the week went on, I got more and more like Quasimodo. And on the last day, I said to my colleagues at the end of the day, I've got to go and lie on the bed. I went and lay on the bed and very soon noticed that I was actually paralysed down one side. Mm. I was very frightened, but I didn't want to shout and frighten the children, so I had to wait for someone to arrive. And those minutes were quite endless. As soon as somebody arrived, I was rushed off to hospital and then to the university hospital and flown home sometime later by air ambulance. And 4 months later, I went back to school. Not right, but able to manage school and sleep. I got to the school summer vacation, very relieved, thinking I've got 6 weeks now to recover. 2 weeks in, very early in the morning, I had a telephone call. And the telephone call came from my principal's wife, who had just discovered that he died in his sleep. Mm. So rather than having the rest, I had to help her with the funeral, let everybody know. And then by September, I was acting principal, and by the January, I was the permanent head. My mobility decreased. Long story short, I ended up having 2 different spinal surgeries, And each of those surgeries ended in failed back surgery syndrome. So the first time I was very good stalk. I put my left foot to the floor, then I fainted. And the second time I became permanently wheelchair bound. Now there was a huge gift in all of this, which sounds, I know, a bit strange. I couldn't physically get into my classrooms. Even if I could get through the door, I couldn't get round the classrooms. And so the gift was I had to find a way of empowering people to take control of their own performance and shared performance for everyone that didn't rely upon me standing behind them saying, you've got to do it that way, or that's not right. I'd love to think I'd have done it anyway, but I'm honest enough to recognize that I'd have probably been too interfering. But necessity meant that I had to find a very different way of supporting people and growing them. And it was incredibly successful. The school was on the 100 best schools in England twice during my tenure.
Wow.
And I now use those techniques. I've used them myself all the way through, but I've used those techniques now with probably thousands of people now and dozens of organizations, because this stuff really works.
Wow. Wow.
So, sorry, a very long explanation.
Unbelievable. And are you still using a wheelchair, or have you been able to train yourself to walk again, or how is your health today?
My mobility is the best it's been since 1996.
Wow.
I don't use the wheelchair in the house or the garden at all. If I go out to town or I go traveling, then I have to use the wheelchair.
Wow.
I've had an internal spinal stimulator, and that's what's enabled me to walk.
Wow.
But I have a problem with fatigue, so I have to balance how much walking I do with whatever else I'm doing, really.
Gina, what an amazing, just your attitude is so incredible with this story. And I would love to tune into, you talk about the gifts of having this happen and the techniques that you've learned and taught. And I'm thinking for people listening, who thank goodness don't have this injury, but may just struggle in different ways. And maybe you can share with us both a little bit about the gift that came through for you, and then what are some of those techniques that you teach that our listeners could benefit from?
I think disability is a metaphor for life. And if you believe that you're not good enough, that you're not clever enough, you're too tall, too short, too fat, too thin, not pretty enough, or whatever, not rich enough, not enough time, you take that belief with you into every situation. You are the common denominator that you take into every moment of every day from the time you're born until you die. And so if you look at what you can't do all the time, if you allow your limiting beliefs to determine the quality of your life, then your life becomes smaller. My legs don't work, that's my disability. But one of the things that I think is incredibly important is if you focus on what you can't do, what you haven't got, then that feels as if it gets bigger. Yeah. So let me give you a couple of examples of what I mean. I came out of hospital on both occasions after spinal surgery, having been in hospital 6 weeks one time and 8 weeks another.
Wow.
And I was back at school part-time within a week and back full-time within 3 weeks. And I mean, I have to smile because certainly on the second occasion, 7 months later, the surgeon said, I think we might talk about you going back to school a couple of hours a week. And I just laughed because I'd been back 4 dacome out of hospital. Now, the reason for that is when I was at home, if somebody hadn't filled the kettle and left me out a cup, I couldn't make a drink. I was limited to reading and watching the telly. I couldn't take a shower by myself. I was very, very limited.
Wow.
I could have somebody in, help me get showered, get me into the taxi because I couldn't drive at that time, go to school where my mouth patently works, my eyes work. I could run the school doing something that I felt was useful and positive that I loved doing and not actually feel completely disabled. Or I could stay at home and focus on what I couldn't do.
Right.
What would you choose?
Mm, I
For
love
me,
it.
it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, that's true in every person's context. Everything we do is a choice.
Right.
And every choice has consequences. And even not choosing is a choice. And often those are the most far-reaching consequences, aren't they, when we let things drift.
No, absolutely.
I made a conscious choice that I had applied for and got the job as being the principal of the school,
Right.
that I was going to do everything I could to make sure that everyone in that school had the best learning opportunity. And so when I was physically limited, it didn't limit my ability to be strategic.
Right.
It just meant that I couldn't lift things or I couldn't walk. I had an electric wheelchair at school.
Right.
And so I decided to focus on what I could do. But I had a really, really important lesson, because even with all of that, and I worked for the DFES, for the government as an advisor, and I did all sorts of roles within the National School of Leadership in the London Institute, to bring an income into school and to keep the school at cutting edge. And each time I'd have a taxi, the same taxi driver would drive me to wherever in the country I needed to go. But after I left headship, and I left headship in 2004 because of my health, and I became a neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner,
Yeah.
I went to go and see how many people used NLP. And I ended up at the Excel Centre in London on a course run by Tony Robbins. Many of your listeners will be familiar with Tony Robbins. And on the first morning, he talked about one of his programs that I really fancied, but I dismissed because I thought, it's in California. How would I get there? How would I manage? Because I didn't have a travel wheelchair in those days, electric wheelchair.
Mm.
And I dismissed it. But the end of that day was the fire walk. And for those of you that are familiar with the fire walk, you walk across hot coals about 30 feet in bare feet. And if you're in the right mindset, then you don't get burned. Now, that time was 2006. I'd had my stimulator fitted a couple of years before, but I could walk very little without help. So somebody each side helped me, and I walked across the coals, and I was absolutely chuffed a little mint balls, and I sat down in my chair and I looked at the next guy. He was a double amputee,
Wow.
no legs below the knee. He turned himself onto his hands and he walked the hot coals on his hands.
Oh my gosh.
That night, I booked my ticket and I booked my flight.
Mm.
Since then, I've done all of Tony Robbins' stuff. I've studied with other people in America. I've gone and created a TV series. I've been on holiday. I am forever grateful to that guy, who I've no idea who he is, but he's helped me challenge my limiting beliefs. And I'm sharing the story, and I've shared it with many because I know from the feedback that many people have said, we've heard that, and we've decided to step out of our comfort zone, even though it feels uncomfortable, and to do the things that we were frightened of. So I would say to anybody, the gift of all of this is learning to, having a real understanding that the only thing that limits us is us. Mm. Now, of course, there are some things I can't do. I'm never going to be a prima ballerina. I'm never going to climb mountains. But there's a hell of a lot of stuff I can do that doesn't require that level of mobility. Yeah. But it's about your beliefs and your mindset. So if your listeners and viewers take nothing out of this, do an audit of your beliefs. If they're empowering, keep them. Mm. But if they're limiting you and keeping you playing small, it's time to ditch them.
Yeah, great. I'm just making note. I totally 100% agree. And what a great story, and such inspiration, Gina, of, even from the moment of being in the hospital and going right back into your work, where frankly you could use your mind and your other capabilities and abilities, and then following, in a way, your intuition and your heart to do more with NLP and Tony Robbins, and seeing somebody who didn't even have legs. I mean, I'm still kind of processing that. that's, I know walking on coals is one thing with legs, with feet. It's another to put your, your hands, your top of your legs of whatever's left. I mean, that's got it. That I'm sure was really powerful to see that. And it sounds like that changed, that kind of cracked open your whole kind of vision for yourself and then what you do with others.
Well, I thought that, people looking at me would say, you're doing amazingly. You're working all over the country and you're doing this and you're doing that. But that guy taught me such a lesson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, we choose whether we are the victim or the hero in our own story. And if you're going to choose one, well, why not create yourself a great part in your story and be the hero? Because it is down to us. We choose the quality of our life, how we think. You asked for some tips. One thing, well, there's three things that I would offer people. One is be mindful of the quality of your thinking. 95% of everything we think is habitual. It doesn't cross our conscious mind. We go into that pattern of behaving or talking or thinking or feeling. And once you choose to be conscious about that and choose the quality of your thoughts, and if the thought's not helpful, then dismiss it, say thank you very much and send it on its way. The second, I think I would say to people is learn to be grateful, collect gratitudes. And I think it's important that I say to you, it could come across as if that everything was plain sailing and it was all easy and there weren't dark days and there weren't a lot of tears and there were very difficult times when particularly after the second back operation, when having spent 18 months to walk to the end of my very small garden, then I'm in a wheelchair, even worse off because I can't even stand as a stalk. It was a challenge. But if you are then prepared to focus on the things that you can be grateful for and make it easy. So for me, the natural world, looking at the garden, or somebody phoning me, or a lovely cup of tea, or a hot shower, you can be grateful for those things and it will help recalibrate the brain.
Beautiful.
And the third thing I would say is the only person who can be responsible for your quality of life, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, is you. If you hand that responsibility over to other people, then you have to put up with what they give you. And it may not be what you want. But nobody can make you unhappy or angry or fed up unless you give them permission.
Amen, Gina.
Good yourself too.
Amen to that. No, I am so with you and have learned this over years and years and agree 100%. And one question for you, I think sometimes, so 95% of thoughts are habitual. Let's say for those listening that are like, okay, I'm becoming more conscious. I'm noticing that this self-doubt thing keeps popping up, or the fear. I know a lot of people listening in, not everybody's an entrepreneur, but I do have a lot of entrepreneurial, or if not full-time, want to get into something, side hustle, it takes courage to do that. It can be scary. Like, how am I going to make a living? What if no one wants my services? So you get into that kind of gray area of like, I don't know, doubt. So you start to notice that. How do you start to change the quality of your thoughts? Because I think that's something I've seen that come up with myself. I've seen that come up with people I've worked with. And it's something I've noticed listeners writing in about. How do you, you notice it, you're conscious of it, you're like, thanks for sharing. What do you put in its place?
The first thing is awareness, because if you're not aware of anything, you can't do it.
Totally.
The second is to use that awareness in the first instance, perhaps over a week or two, to take note of those thoughts, that chatter in your head that repeats itself, or those behaviors that repeat themselves, or particular people who press your buttons, and that it could be the mother-in-law, or it could be the husband, or it could be your teenager, or your neighbor, or a colleague, and notice what it is that triggers you. Very common trigger is the tone of voice. It's often not about what's said, but that tone of voice is the same tone of voice that a nagging parent or a teacher you didn't like used to use. And so it takes you back to being that child.
Right.
So I would say start to recognize the patterns and then look at what underpins those patterns. And you then have a choice. You then hold on to that, or you choose to let it go. So those thought patterns will come up, but immediately flip them over into something positive or put them in the past. So let me give you a couple of examples. I work with a lot of people who are stressed, depressed, anxious, and they talk about my depression and my anxiety and, that I am stressed, and they refer to it in the present tense all the time. The unconscious mind then thinks, oh, you want it, do you? Okay, we'll keep it going.
Yep.
In the same way that people talk about being happy in the future, but not in the now. So change the tense. I used to be depressed, but I'm working on it. I feel a bit fed up today, but it's getting better.
Yeah.
The unconscious mind thinks you're working on it, you want it to be different. I'm going to be happy, not I'll be happy when, but I choose to be happy in this moment. And I'm going to look for things that will help me feel happy in this moment and make it easy. So it's about changing your awareness and then working and starting, small, but then building it up. And like anything, it becomes easier the more you do it.
Beautiful. Such a great example. Gina, where can people find you? Because I have a feeling, not just for your accent, but to connect, commune, be part of you, your community, your work. Where can we find you?
Right. If they go to the main website, which is genuinely, then dash a hyphen, and then the word you.com. So genuinely-you.com. Lots of free resources, and you can find all of the different programs that I offer. Today is the launch day. I'm really excited of the Enlightened Leadership Program, which is Leadership for Life. It's about creating a paradigm shift, leading with integrity, courage, and compassion. And doing the inner work. It's not for the faint-hearted, it's for those who really want to make a positive difference and leave a living legacy in this world. And to find more about that, if you go to enlightenedleadership.co. I'm on Facebook. There's a Genuinely You Facebook group. Come and join the group. Just ask to join and you'll be welcomed with open arms. I'm on LinkedIn and there's an Enlightened Leadership group in LinkedIn. But the website, genuinely-you.com, and the leadership site, enlightenedleadership.co.
Beautiful. I love
I'm on YouTube too. There's lots and lots of films on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw that. No, that's fantastic. And we'll have that all in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Helpful to listen for people listening in and want to just make note and look you up. Any last wisdom comments, anything you'd like to share, Gina, that maybe I didn't ask you, or that's kind of something you want to share with our listeners?
I'd say to people, so far as we know, we just have this one life.
Yeah.
And actually, the principles for me about living an enriched life is, recognize that it's relationships that are important, particularly the relationship you have with you, because every relationship is reflected in the relationship you have with yourself. Get your priorities right. Your health, your relationships. If you're a workaholic, and I absolutely admit to being a recovering workaholic, that don't miss out on your kids growing up. Yeah. Don't miss out on the sunsets. Take time to enjoy the journey. And then live every day to the full. Life's not a spectator sport. And choose to leave a living legacy. Don't wait till you die to leave a legacy. Realize that every word you speak or fail to, every action you take or fail to act leaves a living legacy. So make a positive difference in the world, because what we need now more than anything are people who come from a place of love. And I don't mean pink and fluffy love, but really wanting the best for themselves and others. And people who are prepared to connect and help make a positive difference.
Beautiful. So well said. I have nothing to add other than You are such an inspiration, and I love your words of just authenticity and empowerment. And it's clear you've really lived what you're speaking and teaching. It's very obvious. And thank you for sharing such beautiful wisdom today. It's been an honor to get to know you and have you here.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I do hope that your listeners will come and join us and let us know that they've come from your show. You can send me an email through the website.
Thank you so much, Gina.
Thank you.